Mindfulness. Mindfulness remembers to be awake. Time and again awakening from the wandering mind. Freeing itself from the stories, the fantasies, even the subtleties of mood. Sometimes the mind grows quiet. A certain quiet contentment emerges. There's nothing to fret about. There's nothing to want or get rid of. The experience of the moment might be pleasure in the body or pain in the body. It might be a pleasant mood or an unpleasant mood, but the reactivity to the liking and disliking has diminished. Don't hesitate to enjoy, to bask even in the ease of the quieting mind. Sometimes the mind is quite the opposite. Restless, excited, frightened. We open to and accept and stay awake with whatever happens. And please now let us add on the in-breath perhaps the great mantra, I love you, with your name at the end. On the out-breath, think of someone whom it's easy to love. Surround them with your loving thoughts and energy. So on the in-breath, there's I love you with your own name. And so we have this in-breathing of love for yourself, out-breathing, maybe for all beings. May I be happy. May all beings be happy. May I be happy. May all beings be happy. And so we rest, as Ruth Denison would put it, we rest in the beauty of our being and recognize our interbeing with all of life. As our Native American members say, all my relations, ho mitakuyasin, the allness of which we are each an integral part. And preparing now to come to an end of this blessed time of pausing. Please notice the contact of the body with the chair, with the cushion. Notice the warmth in the body here and there. Notice the breath coming and going. Be attentive to any sounds, including this voice that intermittently pierces the silence. And bringing awareness into the face and the eyes. Maybe let a very tiny smile come to your lips. And then feeling the actual life of your eyes prior to forming the intention to open them, and then letting them open. Or more accurately, creating the intention and the effort to open them. And be mindful of seeing. I'm going to move and get my blanket because my heater was not on all night. And I'll be right back. Hi, Doodle. Well, my apologies for the adventures in sound. Zoom did in fact crash in the middle there, and my good microphone just would not work. So I resorted to the microphone on the camera, and then I remembered I have my old friend, my Yeti, and I plugged that in, and I think it's probably much better now, but it's just an adventure of technology. So, how lovely to be with you. Thank you for being with me. I have a pretty swollen, sore left arm at 48 hours from my Moderna injection. I still am incredibly grateful. And I had a correction from my daughter. I said something with side effect, and she said, that's not a side effect, that's an anticipated or planned effect. There's a name for it, reactogenesis or something. And these vaccines are strong in that by intention. Because right in here is where the antibodies are being built. So it's not a reason to not get it. There really isn't a good reason to not get it unless you're severely immunocompromised or something. So that's my little rant. So my friends, would you like to share something? Jim, would you test my sound? Let me know if I got sound.
You're doing fine.
Okay, sound coming out this end too. Yay! Ah, there's heat coming onto the table now. That's nice too. Ruth Denison, before she met Uba Khin in Burma, was practiced in Japan for some extended period of time, and she said she wore 10 or 12 of those Zen robes and still couldn't get warm because they didn't heat the Dharma hall, and it was northern Japan.
What?
We are practicing the upper middle way. I suppose I should mention, I already did in passing, but tonight is the beginning of the 8th session over 12 weeks, 4 Foundations of Mindfulness class I'm offering. Tomorrow is the beginning of Doug Pullen's class on the basics of mindfulness. And so much more on the website. Oh, and for longer range planning, the last weekend of February, I'll be offering through Hollyhock, the retreat center I teach at in Canada, a weekend retreat, all day Saturday and Sunday 9 to 5.
Robert?
He said, Sherry. Hello, Sherry.
I have something I've been wanting to share for a week or so. I'm just getting second arrows now after sitting with you for over a year. And second arrows are filling my life. I had a text from the younger of my 2 sons a week ago, and I knew that he had been having some health issues, and seeing specialists and so forth. And so texting is not a good idea when something like this happens. So he just briefly texted and said, saw the specialist again, I have some things to tell you, and I'll have to call you later.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So immediately I saw the second arrows hit me in the face, and it was like, oh God, no, he's got cancer, because he had, something was happening with his ears, something was happening to give him extreme vertigo. Yeah, so, and immediately I saw the fear, I saw the anxiety, and I can't lose my son after having lost my only daughter. This just can't happen. But I'm watching all these arrows as it's happening and as he's texting. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was big. So then I did get the phone call, and it has more to do with cholesterol, which I asked of him, and changes in diet that he must make, etc. So there's no cancer. He's not dying. But yeah, it's amazing what our minds do to us.
And isn't it amazing that you were mindfully aware of all those arrows as they were coming in?
It is
I mean, that says a lot, doesn't it?
utterly.
About the dedication of your practice and how it bears fruit.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. By the way, that was not nice communication to text something big is happening, and I may call you later in the day. That's dirty pool.
Good morning, Kate here.
Hello, Kate.
Hi. So I joined you all a little late this morning, so I don't know if this got said, but really the thing that is on my mind is it's Inauguration Day. Trump has left the building. The kind of the broader stuff that's going on in our nation, as well as while Trump has left the White House, he hasn't left the culture. I was driving yesterday and there was someone walking down the street with a hand-painted sign that had a hate speech on it. And called and reported it to our local police department, and then had the thought, I don't know if that's the right thing to do, given that police are behaving in ways that reflect their own personal biases. Anyway, it's all just fraught. So I am both finding it really hard to stay in my seat because I'm excited about inauguration, and also really hard to not go down the paths around reality, which is that our culture has a lot to reckon with. So that is what is on my mind this morning, which really has it has me in knots and on pins and needles, and I'm delighted that I was here to sit still this morning. The sun is rising as it does each morning. I don't know. I needed to say it. It was sitting right here, so.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's our dukkha will go on in various forms. And what can we do except sit and calmly watch our internal show and our reactivities and our likings and dislikings, our jubilation on one hand and fear on another hand, and to think, to think that there are in any circumstance like this, there's winners, quote, and losers. And 74 million people in the United States are very unhappy at this moment and feel like something's been stolen from them. And I have a lot of compassion for that circumstance. I'm always hesitant to talk about politics because the Dharma has really nothing to do with, in a way. And everyone needs the Dharma. But I tried a little experiment, which is that I watched Fox News and I subscribed to Parler before it got stopped, and One American News, OAN network, and I watched there, and I read articles there, and I read opinion pieces there, and if that were my source of information, I would have a completely different worldview, because it's the news stories are presented with the same flash and the same well-spoken, articulate, educated people, and we are what we expose ourselves to, and so it reminds me very much of Marshall Rosenberg's teachings, but I've seen just a couple of little snippets. They were little. I don't even know. I can't even remember. But the context was my computer. But I saw a little 5-minute or 3-minute video of a family in Northern Ireland during the Troubles teaching their small children to hate the people from the South. And a similar, almost identical film of the people in the South teaching their small children to hate the people in the North. And I saw a similar thing with an Israeli and a Palestinian. And there was this creating hateful. And then I saw another thing, which was a Palestinian father whose son had been killed, and an Israeli father whose son had been killed. And they were weeping together and recognizing the insanity of these beliefs where we demonize the other. And at a time like this, I think it behooves us as human beings seeking awakening that we don't create enemies. And celebrating, well, one wants to celebrate, and why not? But this is this election. There will be another election, and it may be the other way. So, taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and observing all polarities, I think is what I aspire to do. Jim just put in the chat, what's it called, Jim? The social dilemma? There's a, why don't you say it?
Yeah, there's a documentary on how our social media apps are created and for what purpose. And the documentary is called Social Dilemma, and it describes some of the effects of the way of thinking and the way of reacting to things that on our psyche, and it's all planned in order to sell more stuff. But it's very tied into our reactive patterns in our nervous systems, and it's really disturbing.
That's why exposing oneself to Dharma books has an impact, because it affects our worldview. I mean, just the notion, how about this? Oh dear, I always worry I'm going to get myself in trouble. There's a man flying in a big jumbo jet right now, who is very unhappy and angry, for whom the possibility of loss does not exist because of the agony that it creates. Unbelievable agony. Existential level agony. And we could say, and there are many saying, yay! And from my conditioned viewpoint, it's a good thing. But to remember the person. And now I feel sad. The degree of agony of a person with that kind of childhood wounding. I've spent a lifetime recovering from mine, and still it affects me every day, every moment. And for people for whom that person brought some hope and light and excitement and for them to face what their conditioning says they're going to face now, the other side's agenda, so much pain in that. So, as my teacher for a brief time in San Francisco, Rena Sirkar, said, she would describe something like this and then say, given this, how can we be anything but loving? How can we possibly be anything but loving? If we dare to open our hearts and realize, oh my goodness, we're all in the same stew and we're so easily conditioned. And at 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I will breathe a sigh of relief. There was not a nuclear war.
Good morning. This is Rebecca.
Hello. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello. Kate, I know exactly where you're at, and what you've been expressing to Robert is right where I've been up to here. It's just right here. And I think that our soon-to-be elected president actually embraces a lot of what you've been saying, Robert. I think he is a man of compassion and balance. And when I saw him in that Catholic church this morning on television, sitting with many members of Congress, I'm glad he is a enthusiastic Catholic. I'm glad he is a person of, faith. I think that's probably what the Catholics would call it. But he's someone who I think he pauses, he listens, and I would think I find him a mindful person, and I'm just so thankful, and I'm glad that he has done the work, that he's taken on this cause at the age of 78 to do this enormous task, and I just pray for his safety and for healing in our country. And it is so frustrating to me so often that there is nothing we can do, as you say, about people who believe otherwise except to love them. There's no logical thing that you can present that will make any difference. All we can do is continue to embrace them and care about them. And so, thank you.
I have a fantasy that builds on what you just said, Rebecca, that a person of goodwill, a person who's willing to listen, a person who surrounds themselves with a diverse cabinet, is it thinkable there could be a Manhattan Project, magnitude project, on how do we bring love to the country? We learned how to split the atom and blow people up in great numbers. What if we devoted that much energy to how do we heal each other? That's what I'd like to see happen. What we're doing here, but in I have no idea, but there are people of great brilliance. So I guess we all do that in our own little way. I'd love to see I'd like to see a massive project on how do we heal the chasm.
If Trump could create what he created, I mean, I feel it magnified and grew so much under his leadership. Can not the other be done as well?
Yeah.
Good morning, Tonga. Good morning, Robert.
Hi. Oh, there you are. Hi, Kathy.
Oh, no, it's Tempest.
Oh.
Hi.
Oh, Tempest. Oh, okay. Kathy waved at the same second. Were you doing this and I didn't see you? Jeez.
No, I just started doing that.
Oh, good. All right.
So, I'm trying to say this without giving into reactivity, but it might be difficult. During the Me Too, when the Me Too movement first exploded, and there were a lot of things coming out about what mostly cis men had done to cis women, you know, to harm them and harass them and whatnot. Some of the conversations in the communities that I was in, because we had people who were very prominent in our community who were exposed. You know, they talked about, well, you know, where's the space for, you know, healing and forgiving this person? And a lot of people worked very hard to talk about how, yes, there did need to be space for healing and forgiveness, but that has to come secondary to the healing and the care of the women who were victimized by this person. First, you attend to the victims, and then you attend to the victimizer and the oppressor. And so, whenever I hear people, and this is generally white people, talk about the need to give active compassion and love to people who are Trump supporters, to people who are QAnon, to whatever, what I don't ever hear is an equally strong desire to attend to the people who were harmed and are continuing to be harmed by those people. And I think it was Kate who was last speaking and said, what else can we do but love these people? Actually, what else you can do is to turn your compassion and energy and action towards Black people, Indigenous people, other people of color, disabled people, poor people, women, all of the different marginalized groups, LGBTQIA+, all these other groups that were directly, actively harmed by this past administration, by the people who follow them, and who will continue, because a lot of white people say Trump made it worse. Trump didn't make it worse. He made it more visible to you as a white person. I'm a black person. I've been well aware for a while. So instead of spending your energy and your focus on those folks, spend your energy and focus on marginalized people and oppressed people. And once they're squared away, then you can turn your energy, like, not saying like don't be compassionate, hate them, but like put your energy where it is needed and not where it's going to mostly be wasted. Make it so that it is once again societally unacceptable to be racist and sexist and homophobic and ableist and all the other things that were brought forth by this. And that's it.
Wow. Thank you. That was very beautifully said and makes absolute sense to me. There's another piece by extension, I think, that being compassionate doesn't mean also one doesn't hold people accountable and put them in jail. And I think there's some reckoning to come in that direction as well. But I hear you. I hear you. All I can say is I bow to the wisdom of that. Thanks.
Robert, this is Jim. I tuned in a little bit before we started today to the broadcast of the preparations for the inauguration and all that stuff. One of the people they interviewed was the congressman, I think from North Carolina, James Clyburn, and he made a comment that was really helpful to me. He said, never trust anybody that comes into government and says it should be run like a business. This federal government is not a business. It's a service organization. And so our job is to figure out, how best to serve. And when it was a simple sentence, but it was like, how long has it been since I've heard anything so clear and so compassionate and wise out of a broadcast from Washington, D.C. His voice has been muffled by all the hoopla around Trump for 4 years, but it was a voice of reason and such wisdom. And I think he shares that perspective with Biden. I think he sees a partner. So he was very hopeful, and I thought, well, I haven't felt that for a long time. That feels good. Thanks, you.
Jim.
Hi, Robert. It's Sky.
Hello, Sky.
I vowed to be quiet today, but apparently I can't do it. Tempest, I love what you had to say, and it reminds me of kind of what we were talking about a few days ago about seeing the humanity in people and not just always, leaning into their good qualities, to remember there's a balance. And the forgiveness that we lean to, I think in some ways is to help us feel better about having been so angry over injustices. And yet, that forgiveness is not a whole thing until there is restitution. So to me, that restitution comes in the form of assisting people who have been wronged and having compassion to people who've been victimized and marginalized. It goes from the macro level to the micro level, even in an interaction with a loved one. If they apologize to you and there's no restitution or recognition of their wrongdoing, it's a hollow apology. I feel that, or I believe that in the last 4 years, the damage that has been done to marginalized communities, women, children, every time that I have a stomach ache or I lose sleep because of the insanity that I'm witnessing that triggers my own pain. I mean, we've all been affected in this country from tiny little levels of like having a restless night of sleep to larger levels of losing our homes and our lives and people that we love. So forgiveness and apologies will miss a component of our true healing without restoration, in my opinion. Okay, I've had my say. Thank you. I love this, Rhonda, and I love all of you.
Thanks,
And
Guy.
going forward in love and light.
Robert, is there time for me to add a comment? It's Russell, or do you need to stop now?
No, there's time. Please.
I think the hardest part for me has been to accept a reality that you just described a little bit ago, Robert, which is a large proportion of my fellow citizens see the world very differently than I do, and they think I'm the problem because I don't get it. And I think back, in a sense, to my years of marriage with Nancy, and even though we had a really loving and good relationship, there were times we simply didn't agree on certain things, and we had to find ways to continue to love and to work together in spite of those differences. So where I've come with all of this is that I think we are too quick to want to sell our point of view of how things should be to people who are not interested or willing. But where I think we can find common ground is by identifying the major problems in our society, and in my view, saying, okay, I don't agree with you, and you don't agree with me on a lot of things, but what shall we do about this problem? Whether it's infrastructure, whether it's inequality, whether it's climate change, whether it's the pandemic, what shall we do to solve these problems? Because we do have those in common.
Thank you, Russell. And I want to say one more thing, and then I will have to go. Where I will land on my feet around this is no matter what I do externally in terms of activism, grounding in silence and in the effort for my own liberation from suffering has to come first. Because it's through being quiet enough to being mindful enough to be aware of the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not selfness of everything, then I can act skillfully and powerfully in the world, and I won't create more harm. Hence, before any political affiliation, any activism for me, must come the refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And from that springs skillful action. So, and as we've talked about a lot at PIMC, our mission statement, our mission, is to assist people in their awakening from suffering. And from that can spring compassionate action. But it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a challenge to... I've known a couple of people who in the last weeks have given up their meditation practice completely because they felt like their activism was of the only importance. And when I watch what folks do, that for whom that's the case, it sometimes gets pretty misguided. So that's my little yay Dharma admonition, I guess. And Tempest, I want to thank you again for bringing that clarity of that reality to our hearts and ears. It's really important. I encourage you to continue whenever you feel so brave and inspired. That I am really grateful. Yeah. Let's close with Om. Unmute yourselves and we can Om together for a few moments. Om being in Ram Dass's terms the dial tone of the universe. May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Goodbye, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for being here.